All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio. Now, I've just returned from a trip down to Virginia, and absolutely everywhere I went, there were just signs up for Elaine Luria for Congress. And I was like, I'm not a native of the state, I was just down there visiting the seashore. I was just like, there's just this overwhelming presence of campaigning going on for Elaine Luria. I was like, I have to know more. So let's kind of just dive in and do a little bit of discussion here. I'm going to be flat out honest. I know these things aren't super popular on this channel, but why not as a subject that's somewhat fascinating? Now, Elaine Luria is going to be going for the nomination. She's trying to represent Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. And the challenger that she'll be facing is the incumbent Scott Taylor. And this is one of the few instances where we have sort of a battle of the former Navy sailors. Both of these nominees are former Navy sailors, but one big thing that Elaine Luria does have going for her is she is, someone who is not a career politician. And I think that's something that the Democrats can really try and capitalize on, because whether it was, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, their big names that they throw around are career politicians. And that is something that the Democratic Party has really been trying to get away from these establishment individuals that are running the show. Let's be realistic. Greed exists in many forms, right? And it's like, just because, someone is talking about things that are on the Democratic side or the left-wing side or the liberal side, it doesn't mean that they cannot be contaminated by, greed and being power-hungry. And we really see that come out in the career politicians. So, Elaine Luria is not that. She is a career Navy individual. Did I say a Navy individual? Yeah, great way of putting it. She is a career Navy sailor and a small business owner, born in Birmingham, Alabama, but moved to Virginia at a young age, and she has also been one of the first women to graduate from the Naval Nuclear Program, so she has quite a few different things going on for her. One of the big things that I really would like to talk about on this thing is, can she win? If we're actually going to examine the political spectrum in America, can she win? Well, I would say that she is really not going to a lot of the Democratic talking points. And I'm not really sure if that would be good or bad. She's talking about things like animal welfare. That's absolutely good to talk about for Democrats. But when it comes to things like, health care, she just simply writes, we need to have reliable and affordable choices in health care. This is something that might be good to put out in a general election, because so many Democrats now are talking about universal health care. So many Democrats are talking about single payer, or at the very least Medicare for all. But no, she hasn't said that. She just says reliable and affordable choices, which that's, something that should be rather appealing to the Republican voters, because they're all about choice and decision making. They're just like, we don't want to have, this blanket statement of you will have to do what the government says or pay a fine. No, they also don't want the system to get bogged down with, abuse and people taking advantage of something. If you give something free for everyone, there's going to be abuse in the system. That's more of the response. But she just says we need affordable choices. What do you guys think? Do you think that would be a good thing or a bad thing? Now, one of the big things that she talks about is safety. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. She wants to talk about, we do not fear for our safety or that our children are kept safe in schools. To do this, we must implement universal background checks on all gun sales, prohibit the sale of assault weapons, and repeal the Dickey Amendment so that the CDC can study gun violence. Whew. Well, in Virginia, I don't really know how people are going to respond to that. It is an absolutely very bold and controversial thing to say that you want to prohibit the sale of assault weapons. By that, there's been some big debate about, what is an assault rifle versus an assault weapon, but I'm pretty sure you know what she is referring to when she uses that term, assault weapon. Is this something that people in Virginia are going to want to hear? Is this what, people are going to want to hear who are voting in the 2nd Congressional District? I mean, it's like, this is just a very controversial thing to say nationwide. And the reason that people are opposed to banning assault weapons, using her words, is they don't think it's going to do anything. They don't think that it's going to solve anything. They don't think it's going to be the remedy that people are looking for. It's not really going to get rid of these mass shootings. What they are sort of saying is the problem is cultural, and it's like we need to do more things like improve our educational system and also provide, mental awareness options for many people. I didn't say mental health, I said mental awareness. Giving people sort of support networks when they are dealing with things like frustration and anxiety and, seclusion. Mental illness is just something, that people associate with depression or schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. But one of the people who was criticizing the laws that we currently have was just like, we need to address mental awareness. Things like, not everyone who has depression turns into a murderer or turns into a destructive person. It's like these are mental awareness issues about people who don't know how to deal with frustration, who don't know how to deal with, like getting angry and, things of that nature, because we don't have much of a support system for that. They just want to talk about expanding those things. I'm not really saying anything one way or another. It's just, this is what people have put out there. This is going to be something that is going to be very difficult for a lot of people to stomach, though. Just as well as I do, that in America, people are very passionate about the Second Amendment, and even the universal background checks. The argument that people are putting up as something opposed to that is, it's just like, it's guilty until proven innocent. It's that you have to prove that you are not going to commit a crime with this gun before you've done anything wrong. I mean, it's like you're guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to innocent until proven guilty. But what do you think about that? Do you agree with Elaine Luria's statement on that we need universal background checks and we need to ban assault weapons? I mean, this is just her platform that she's putting out, just reading off her website here, elaineforcongress.com. Now, also, one of the big things that people have talked about is housing. I believe that the Bernie camp, and by that I just mean his supporters, have been really passionate about the notion of free housing. I don't know if it's actually come from Bernie himself, but just listening to people on YouTube who are in the Bernie camp have been talking about free housing. And Elaine writes, security means that we are secure in our homes, that we have the means and resources to provide stable housing for our families. That's a very vague statement, but housing is a very big issue going on now, because not too far from Virginia we have Maryland, and Representative John Delaney has been all about that. He's running for president, and he just sort of said basically, this was at the TED conference, when it's like, if you want to do things with healthcare to lower costs, first you improve the housing. If you give people better housing, they're going to get sick less often because they aren't going to be living in dingy, contaminated areas. What do you think about that, though? Do you think that the government should have any involvement in housing at all? Elaine Luria supports equal pay for equal work, and this means equality means that every woman and every person of color has equal access to capital and equal pay for equal work. Well, I mean, a lot of people are absolutely for this, right? I mean, who is opposed to this in this day and age, equal pay for equal work? The real thing that people are just addressing is they're just some sort of underlying factors that people didn't think about originally that are causing these, kind of differences in why some people are earning more money than other people, or why some people are CEOs and some people are not. These debates have been going on since beyond I can remember, since before I was born. And really, when you just get online and you look at the debates, from 1981 about people talking about the gender pay gap, and Thomas Sowell, trying to debunk the gender pay gap back in the 80s, and it's like, this stuff is older than I am, and we never really seem to achieve any sort of consensus. But Elaine Luria is very big on infrastructure. She has a jobs plan, and she wants to use prosperity means that America is investing in our future with world-class educational opportunities so that our children can thrive in the global marketplace. Well, yeah, okay, that's very, very basic and general. Can Elaine Luria win? I don't vote in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. As I said, I just sort of, wanted to know more about this particular subject. This seems like a very competitive congressional district. And you have two people, both of military backgrounds, both people who have served overseas, and Scott Taylor, the man I mentioned at the beginning, he was an Iraq War veteran, and Elaine Luria was also deployed to the Middle East. They both seem to have resumes. Scott Taylor's only been in the Senate, House of Representatives, excuse me, this is for the Congressional District. He's only been there since 2017, but as Heidi Klum would say, one day you're in and the next day you're out. Except maybe this is 2-year terms. I'd say that it's possible that she can win, and not exactly to comment on any of the issues specifically, but I'd say that her gun control stance is something that has been widely discussed among the Democratic Party, and it's a popular belief in the Democratic Party, but that is something that is going to hold her back when trying to, get anyone from the other side over there. Because that's just not a popular thing for Republicans to hear, and for libertarians to hear, and for independents to hear, and just even for Democratic gun owners to hear that you're going to do anything anti-Second Amendment. That's just kind of the America we live in. People have arguments on both sides, though, of the gun control debate. And that would be another thing, just to discuss in the comments section below. I'd say that it's possible that she can win, and I'm just driving down the road in Virginia, I'm seeing her signs up and down everywhere, no matter what town I was in, and I think that she does have the resume for it. She was a naval officer, she was a small business owner. Those are the kind of things that we need to be incorporating, though, into our leadership, not people, who have just spent, 40 years only working in politics, and it's just the same old regurgitated cycle of political elites. So it's always nice to hear fresh voices and know that there are people in there who actually stand a chance at breaking through and entering into our leadership. We don't need the same old all the time. And so many people, let's be honest, they just vote for the incumbent because they don't know who the challengers are. Or even if they recognize the signs, they don't even go to the website to look up who is this person and what do they represent. And, it's a very, very impractical and unfortunate system, but we have to make the most of it. So to anyone who might be voting in the 2nd Congressional District of Virginia, who would you want to vote for? That's the final question. Judgment-free zone. It's just wanted to know more about this particular individual and her platform. I say she has a chance. And part of that might be because of her moderate nature. She is by no means an extremist on any of this stuff. I would view an extremist as something like somebody who's trying to implement a 50% quota and saying 50% of all positions must be filled by women. Yeah, I don't see that stuff coming from Elaine Luria. I don't think she's a major extremist in the Democratic Party. But we'll know in November. It's mid-September right now, and we just want to know what is the likelihood that she will win, and maybe the face of Virginia politics will be changing. All right, well, that's all for me now. You guys keep in touch, and let's go out and vote in November.